here and just being with everyone, and the amount of knowledge that is gained in this room is amazing. So thank you so much. So I am still a little nervous speaking in public, so bear with me. I always take the opportunity to say yes so you can get better at your trade. So my name is Darbi Boddy. I ran for the Lakota School Board in north of Cincinnati in Westchester, Ohio in 2021. I got started because of COVID and what that exposed, and also the dishonesty of the government and the manipulation. And so I got, once I moved back to Ohio from Montana, which is a great place to live, by the way, I got involved with some local grassroots organizations. And one thing led to another. I was involved in a group that had a House representative in this group, and they said that the local school board needed parents to support these other parents. And so I was available and I showed up. And at the very end of this meeting, the superintendent said something about potentially having a vaccine clinic at that local school district. So I had actually kind of snuck in. There was only allowed to be 50 people there, and so I made my way in. I was the only person not wearing a mask, by the way. And when he said that, I spoke up at the back of the room and I said, "Excuse me, are you talking about the Pfizer vaccine?" And he said, "Well, I don't really know what vaccine, but we're just in the talks of having a clinic." And so which is kind of odd that he actually answered me, because school board members and superintendents typically don't answer. I don't know if it was my no mask or the Jesus was an activist jacket that I had on, but I guess it was it prompted an answer. And so that next school board meeting, I had a poster that I printed out all of the physical harm that the vaccines were presenting. And then I also, in 2021, now, I mentioned the fact that myocarditis was one of the leading causes of death and reactions from the vaccines, and so therefore they did not have the vaccine clinic at Lakota, and I was asked to run for the board, and so I won. And I had a really strong message, and I had 3 bullet points. One, the first was to suss out critical race theory and remove it, to teach the truth in biology that boys cannot become girls and vice versa, and that boys do not belong in girls' athletics, and to teach the greatness of America. And so I won. I had the largest amount of contributions by $10,000, and I was also donating to the other conservative school board member that I ran with. So later I realized I was the only true conservative on that board, and from the very beginning they used intimidation tactics and slander, and they even tried to get a petition passed to remove me. I had a lot of opposition, and then they finally did win by removing me with lawfare. And so that ended up being a two-year stint in hell. So what did I expose? Well, I exposed the Ohio School Board Association. This is the association that really has these yearly to bi-yearly meetings where they teach superintendents and treasurers and all these people these things. And one of the groups that I went in, one of the sessions was sponsored by a George Floyd activist who said it's okay to feel guilty for being white. The second session that I was in, they talked about equal outcome, which we now know as equity. I also exposed our superintendent, who is the textbook definition of sexually deviant. In his own words, he admitted to pillow talk with his wife, discussing drugging, molesting, and videoing minors as pillow talk. And then he also said, advertised on Craigslist that he wanted a strange man to join him and his wife before a concert in their hotel room. And unfortunately, the board would not put him on administrative leave once this information came out. I was the only one that said we need to put him on leave right away. And the board handled this very poorly. They, again, as Kelly will use probably, they were feckless bobbleheads and did not do their job to protect our students. Also, through this exposure, or through this situation, I exposed the rhino and her clown, I call him, who I ran with, by calling things to vote. So they say publicly that they're for erasing or getting rid of DEI, they're for protecting our girls in athletics. But when it came down to voting, they voted no. And so I was able to expose that. And then I also exposed the Ohio High School Athletic Association. They had their one and only meeting for coaches and superintendents regarding, it was a DEI summit. And while I was there, I exposed, the microaggressions that they were talking about and the LGBTQ activation that LGBTQ activists, those are the words I forget. The LGBTQ activists that were promoting LGBTQ legislation, and then also talking about the bad bills, which were the conservative bills. And then with this, that prompted the state of Ohio legislators to pass a bill that protected not only girls in sports, but also in their private spaces. I also initiated the removal of diversity, equity, inclusion in our school. It was called the Lodi department. And we had a meeting where it was a committee meeting, and within that meeting, there was one person who had probably about a year ago posted on Twitter at the time that Black Lives Matter, and she supported critical race theory. So I asked her about that, and she couldn't answer my question, and it caused a lot of chaos by the left. And because I asked these questions and I exposed that she was pushing this book that the Lakota Education Association, the teachers union, had partnered with her to promote, called restorative practices. And so they were trying to get the principals to read the restorative practices literature. And then I also through a records request, exposed some of the DEI initiatives and grants that were being pushed by the teachers union for the Lodi department. I also was able to visit some of the buildings, and again, this was another big issue. I went in the front door, I had my badge, and they asked me to wait for the principal, and I said, no thank you, I just want to look around. And so I did, and I took pictures, and what I exposed was, so on the kindergarten through third grade, we have K through 3, 4 through 6, 7th and 8th, and then high school buildings. And on the little doors of the little kids, it said, all are welcome here. So again, this is prompting a discussion, who would not be welcome? And why would a kindergarten, first or second grader think that other people aren't welcome in their classroom? And then I also exposed in the high schools and the middle schools the safe space stickers. Again, when a teacher has a safe space sticker, what is safe about this teacher and what is not safe about that other teacher? What conversations are happening in this safe space? And what are the students, majority of the students who are not LGBTQ, how are they feeling when they're going into this safe space? And how comfortable do they feel when they know that this person is an LGBTQ activist? I also found an altar in the middle school for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Literally, it was like an altar that you would pray to. And then because of all of this, they actually issued me a fake trespassing notice, the superintendent did, and he partnered with an off-duty police officer, and they delivered this trespass notice to my door conveniently with the local news showing up at the same time. My little girl was chasing our new puppy, so she was on the video as well, broadcasted all over Cincinnati. Excuse me. And we did a records request for the police officer, and there was no record of him delivering this fake trespass letter, and there was no video either, where they always have the video on them. So again, then afterwards, they accused me of disobeying the policy, but then after that, they changed the policy to make sure that it was not allowed for a school board member to enter the buildings. I also exposed some of the journalism field trips to Washington, D.C. They had diversity, equity, and inclusion breakouts and social emotional learning breakouts. And again, Scholastic is another thing. They have social emotional learning books. They have diversity, equity, and inclusion books. And we even had a principal that said, well, I just keep the controversial books out of the way so no one runs into them, but if someone asks for them, I'll provide them. Why is the public education providing these books? You should go to the library or go order those books online by yourself. So my key takeaway is, I went into this situation knowing that, and with the understanding that I was looking for indoctrination, and I found it. It was the teachers' unions, it was the administrators, But this is where the problem lies, and I think this is really important to note, because it's not just the lefties, it's also the Republicans. It's the ones that say they love America, that they support our Constitution, and that are possibly even Christian. And yes, they don't like what is happening with our country, but as a teacher and administrator, they can't see the wickedness in what they're teaching because they've been brainwashed. And they can't see the harm in what they are doing, or they don't have enough cojones to speak up and stop teaching it. They refuse to recognize that some of these policies and systems need to go, or to even admit that they are bad. And so what happens is, if they admit that these are bad, and if they admit that these are nefarious, then that means that they are guilty for being part of these indoctrinators, and they are part of this harming of our children. So in their minds, what they are doing has to be justified, or they are part of the problem. All right, so since then, I've really been working with Protect Ohio Children, so I'm on the board there. And how much time do I have left? Okay, so I'm gonna go through this really fast.
Okay, 4 minutes.
Okay. So, and then I started my own, actually just this month, I started Access Ohio. So again, it is informing the community on initiatives that are going to strengthen families, empower parents, and teach the greatness of America. So if you would like to, I need some startup money. So if you would like to go, access-ohio.com, access-ohio.com. My website is still under construction, but because I'm trying to, build the financial support so that I can get someone to do my website. But anyway, so this would allow me to keep doing and learning what I'm doing, and this would provide support for that. But this is the most important thing, guys, and I want you to know this. I was writing this down actually as I was driving here. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. Although we have a policy or a law that says we can no longer do it, it is still here. They are changing the name. It is not metastasizing into social and emotional learning. This is the new face of woke education, and it's in everything. You can't escape it. It is in artificial intelligence. It is in the assessments. It is in curriculum. It is in books, and so what they are doing is using empathy as a new weapon. Some of the jargon that you're going to recognize is soft skills, safety, resilience, self-awareness, school climate, tolerance, and MTSS, which is multi-tiered support systems. And they're focusing on emotions, which are subjective, and it is creating a culture of fragility and conformity. So if you don't conform, then you're a bad person. So our students don't want to be bad people. They want to conform and be liked and loved by everyone, and that's how they play on these emotions. So any disagreement with the truth, if it's your truth or your truth, any disagreement with that is intolerable, and it's not debatable. They do not debate. If they debate, that is danger. Debate is danger. And so these words can be violence, right? The word, well, I'm sorry, but there's no such thing. A boy cannot become a girl. Well, that becomes violence. Then violence becomes speech. So why did Charlie Kirk get murdered? Because his violent speech, his disagreeing with this agenda, became violence. And so violence begets violence, and so they can now, in their opinion, shoot to kill. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Maoism, but right, so in China, some of the beginning, Xi Van Fleet, I think is her name, from China, she remembers, that the teachers and the students were getting killed. And why were they getting killed? Because they didn't agree with the agenda of Mao. And so mental health is now the focus. This mental health focus is actually what is leading to this mental health and the justification of the killings. So some DEI programs, for special note, culture and becoming or belonging, culture and belonging, resilience, education, and 21st century soft skills are now some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion things that are happening. So thank you so much.